So today there is a mix of bad and good news, but mostly bad news related the FIP. Well, I don't need to present there are no new companies, so you know about the antitrust compliance policy. Sorry, because I didn't update. I used the same template and I didn't update the dates. I will do when I share the presentation with all of you. So I'll update a bit on the fisheries and projects. Pia is going to join us to tell us how the assessment is going, present a little bit on the actions that are ongoing and the strategy for next year. So starting by Morocco, if you remember in June, I proposed to send this letter to foster collaboration with basically with the research institute and also the authorities to at least update the issues profiles and get the information, or incentivizing them to make the information of the stocks and management available. I finally didn't send this letter because in July I could meet with people from the INRAS and we have initiated some discussions. So I just consider that, well, if we have approached them and they are showing some feedback, it was better to await to send the letter if this is finally not materialized or there are not results from this first conversation. So basically this was July, so Fisher's team was in touch with CNRS, and then we are awaiting for some more information, but we have already updated in Fisher's identifying 2 other areas of fishing that were not identified previously. So, one second. So basically, Morocco organized and managed its fisheries and the coastlines, identifying 3 major areas. So North Morocco, which corresponds mainly to the Mediterranean coast of Morocco and part of the north of the Atlantic coast. Central Morocco, which is around Agadir, and South Morocco, which is not really Morocco, but well, is Western Sahara. But and is where all the octopus fishery, especially the artisanal component, is being developed, and the fishery is happening there. The industrial fishery is mostly based in the Agadir port, but they also fish in the southern waters. Management regulations and rules and controls and the stock is mostly focusing with the data from the south and the limits for the management area, and all the information that is developed belongs to the south. But we know that there are fishing, that there is also fishing happening in the rest of the areas, and probably some of you, Ricardo, maybe from Brasmar, or those that are more in Spain or located here and has traveled to Morocco, knows it, no? The reality is that there were no evidence about these fishing areas, and now we have been able to find the evidence and to start putting this in fishers. Say that you are going to find in fishers the areas identified. That means that it exists, but the profiles are empty of information because there is no stock assessment developed with data from these areas. But at least you can have the warranty that this is not it can be more or less, I wouldn't say fully unregulated or unreported, but is really that they are focusing the efforts in management in the south. So this is where all the full profile is developed. But the Morocco authorities covers the coastline. The management plan covers the southern region. So this is the first thing that we have been able to update. So we are continue collecting information to develop the rest of the profiles and specifically update the data of the southern profile. From there, I had some conversations today. So just my previous call 1 hour ago. So this is new for this group that was not in the group in the morning. We are establishing some conversations with some stakeholders, in particular the Federation of National Industries and others, to see how we can generate again a momentum maybe next year with the UNDP project that I will be speaking in the next slides. Hello, Pia. Thanks for joining. Related to Mauritania. So as you know, in Mauritania, the FIP is established, and with Mauritania, we always walk 5 steps and we go back 8 steps. So this is where we are now. We launched the FIP. Some work is being developed by INROP, and all the work that is developed is not being translated into results for the FIP. And why this is happening? Basically because the collaboration among stakeholders in the country, authorities, research, SMCP, who is this body that controls the trade and the exports, are not cooperating. And SMCP had the mandate to cooperate this project, and they have not been effective in doing this work. They are even not paying the consultant. So the consultant is really working for free for us now. Well, not for us, for the FIP. And the association that we proposed to create is not working as we were expecting. So basically, just to recap a bit, we propose to organize the national industries, so your suppliers, well, not yours, because we are now speaking with the US companies and you are sourcing from mostly Spanish companies, but the vendors of the Spanish companies are not collaborating as we expected, because they may not have felt the pressure, because the demand is very high, because procurement policies are not really including or asking them to engage properly. What we expected is that this AMPEP was going to be the group of companies, so the industry, the private group, that was going to push and put pressure on the Mauritanian stakeholders, authorities, and the rest of the bodies of Mauritania to get the job done, basically, as you do, no? So you pressure on your suppliers and the cascade effect. But this group is only a few voices that are really cooperating with us to push for the FIP, but it's not enough. So this is mostly the current situation. There are things happening in Mauritania. INROP has put on the table a new management plan, but if you see in the update of the FIP, when they updated all the information, is still considered in stage 2, because all the work that they are doing has not been like somehow endorsed or publicly validated by the rest of the authorities. So the work that they are doing is there. So there are things happening, but without good results. So I'm going to Mauritania first week of December. I've already sent a letter to the new director of the SMCP, because this, as always happens in Mauritania, changements in roles of these bodies and these offices within the country hit the project and put the project in standby. So I resume and I met this new director in Consemar, so 6th of October. I sent him a letter along with all the portfolio of all the project, and I really ask and push him to endorse the project again and coordinate and mandate paying the consultant and well, resuming his responsibilities. So I expect having more meetings going in December. But the next for the next season, which is starting next fishing season, which is starting in the coming month, so they are still deciding when this is going to start. What I suggested to Spanish companies this morning who are in direct touch with them, and something that I suggest again here, is continue with this pressure. So I will continue sharing these letters, speaking up on behalf of the SR as a group, with the logo from the SR. But I believe that there is also individual responsibility in integrating more procurement requirements towards incentivizing companies in Mauritania to be trustable, transparent, and push for the project. Because otherwise we are always in this dynamic of we do some things well. I leave Mauritania, so things work for a couple of months. And then I need to go back to Mauritania to tell them that they need to do the job. So, and we were expecting that AMPEP, this group of vendors, were going to first put in this pressure, and secondly, at least match in terms of funding, the funding that you have invested, because this is another topic that I presented to the new director, that there are investments. So I've considered that the contributions to the SR as investments in the sustainability of the fishery. So this is the way that I also use your contributions. The contributions are not paying my salary. The contributions are fostering the FIP, part of the secretariat of SFP. But obviously, I'm working to push harder for the FIP and to provide support to the FIP. So this is more or less the status of the project. So there are two opportunities. One's in December. The second one is in January. So thanks to the UNDP kickoff project, we are building a shared work plan with the small pelagic FIPs. Why we are doing that? Because the small pelagic FIPs is quite well advanced and integrated into the Mauritanian strategy, and all the artisanal sector is facing the same challenges. So not the industrial sector, but the small, and this is where the major challenges are and weaknesses of the fishery. So, well, we are merging this strategy, we are presenting this to UNDP, and we hope that in the first quarter we will resume all this work and foster coordination. But my recommendation is, a part of the collective actions that we are conducting, that individually you reinforce your messages to your suppliers, in that case Spanish suppliers, and Spanish suppliers might reinforce the requirements when purchasing to companies. Yeah. And with that, I will leave Pia. I don't know if you have questions or comments. The majority of the companies at the SR has provided some links to your suppliers. Spanish companies has provided the links to their suppliers in Mauritania, but there are still companies within the SR that we don't know where they are sourcing from, or who are the vendors in Mauritania, or the intermediaries. So I also encourage, for those that have not shared information, to share this information with us. All is protected by the non-disclosure agreement that is signed. And I use only this information to really target these companies when I go to Mauritania, contact them and propose them to join the FIP, and obviously in a friendly approach and also in a collective way. So all the information is aggregated, and nothing is really, any sensitive information is used for public purposes. So Pia, I leave you to share the screen, or I can share the screen as well.
I can do it. I can do it. Let me see if I can do it. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So good afternoon, everybody. I see some familiar names here. Happy to see you again. Happy to meet you, those that I haven't met before. So I want to give you a little bit of an update of where we are with our octopus project in Mauritania. And I will also share the preliminary findings that we have already achieved within this project. So the purpose of the project, as you all know, is to implement a human rights impact assessment into Mauritania's octopus supply chain. We are concentrating in the supply chain. So our work is concentrated on the production step, which is fishing, and in the transformation that takes place in Mauritania. We're not looking into the whole value chain, so we're not assessing or identifying risks within transportation means or in the sales or when retailers receive or resale. The focus of this project is just to understand and identify which are the most important, the salient issues, human rights issues that are present and that might be potentially existing in the octopus Mauritanian supply chain. So the assessment is focused on artisanal fishing, industrial fishing, processing plants, and in addition to these three ways of identifying the human rights adverse impacts, we are also going to perform with you and the members of the ASR a self-assessment, which is going to be linked to your purchase policies. I explain myself. The three ways of identifying the way that we identify what human rights can be present is first by doing this research on what exists in Mauritanian supply chain, who are the vulnerable groups, what is the context of the country, the field visit, etc., etc. But then how companies, how buyers are treating their suppliers, what is the level of dialogue, what are the purchase policies. Those purchase policies can also have an impact on human rights and can also determine the existence of violations of human rights. So we will be, I will explain this later. This is the first part, so the assessment of the human rights potential issues within the supply chain. And then in light of what we have found, in light of what we have identified, what are the preliminary issues that we have found that exist in the supply chain, we will put together a set of actions and recommendations. These recommendations will be divided per actor. So there will be a bunch of recommendations that shall be addressed to the Mauritanian state, a group of recommendations and actions that are addressed to the buyers, another group that is addressed to the countries that are actually importing this octopus, for instance, Spain, to Mauritanian authorities, etc., etc. So we will be developing sets of actions that are ready to be implemented, no? And these will be divided by the different actors. So this is a little bit the structure of how the project looks like. So what has been the methodology? Since January last year, so since January 25, we have begun the desk review. So within this desk review, we're looking to Mauritanians' legal framework, news, academic papers, research papers. We have been engaging with civil society actors, both European actors, persons that are maybe based in Brussels or in Geneva, and at the same time also local actors. So doing all this, what we call the desk research, the desk review, without going to Mauritania. This is very important for us because the minute we begin the field work, like the real work, we need to have a deep understanding of what might be happening. So we can ask the right questions. We know what might be happening. We confirm. We go to the field work. We do the field work to confirm our initial hypothesis. So we have done a lot of engagement already during this desk review, and the idea of doing the field work is to confirm or not those hypotheses, and to observe during the field mission what is happening, and again to do all the engagement with the local actors, because it's never the same just to do telematic engagement that observation surplus. Problem that we had with the field mission, unfortunately, we had requested our visas to go to Mauritania, me and my colleague Maria. Some of you already know her as well. And the timing was not a good one. We had designed this field trip to Mauritania a few months back with Carmen, taking into account the biological stop of the octopus fishing and so on and so on. But unfortunately, our visas were denied. So we could not travel to Mauritania. Why were our visas denied? Well, our guess is that there has been some very negative reporting on the human rights situation in Mauritania. You might be aware or not, because you're in the other side of the world, that Mauritania is a key partner of the European Union for stopping migration purposes. So the European Union, to put it in a very simple way, is giving a lot of money to Mauritania. And since it's given a lot of money to Mauritania, key NGOs have done some research telling the European Union, like, know your client, and this is what's happening within your client, meaning Mauritania. So there has been very negative reporting on human rights in Mauritania, and these reports came out like right the week before we were supposed to go to Mauritania. So we could not come, and we had to change a little bit the approach. So how we work at VHR normally is we have this international team, which we're used to doing human rights impact assessments in different sectors. We always work according to international standards of human rights, but we always go hand by hand with a local partner. This means a person that knows the traditions, the cultures, that reads between lines, that can see what we can't see. We always need a local partner. So we had already identified a local partner who has been working closely with us. So unfortunately, he had to do the field work on his own. So during a few days in late September, this local partner, Mr. Harun Sidat, who is someone that knows the sector very well, he was also the local partner for the small pelagic project. So we're talking about someone that, I mean, he knows very well. He knows the authorities. He knows the supply chain. He has the ways to interview workers outside their working place, because one of our rules is that we never interview, or if we do with a lot of security requirements, we normally do not interview workers in their workplace, be it in the industrial vessels or processing units, because this might endanger them. So he found his way to interview fishermen and workers in public gathering places, in roundabouts, in the landing of the boats areas, in the beaches, etc. So he has already done this part of the field work, and here you can see that he has done interviews with 53 persons, among them fishers, also Senegalese fishers. We did have a focus on Senegalese fishermen, because normally, and this is of course a general thing, migrant workers are one of the most vulnerable groups. So we had, during our desk review, identified that there were high chances that Senegalese migrant workers, irregular workers, were engaged in the octopus fishing. So this was also one of the targets of the field research, seeking out and reaching out to Senegalese workers to understand whether they were suffering different conditions or were in a more vulnerable situation than compared to national fishermen. So he performs a few interviews. He also visited 2 processing units, one in Nouakchott and the other one in Nouadhibou. He met with different authorities. So this is the first part that has been done yet. The purpose of this, both desk research and the field work, is to have an idea, identify what are the most important issues, what we call human rights salient issues, now according to international terminology, to prioritize the actions that we need to take or that should be taken in order to deal with those issues and to manage the human rights impacts. So what has also been done, I mean, the purpose of both the desk review and the field work is to identify these issues. Once we have identified these issues through both the desk review and the field work, we also, what Monsieur Harun Sidat has been doing, is identifying with whom could we partner or what initiatives could be taken to tackle and address the issues that we have identified. So this is the whole methodology of how the work is being implemented. We have had some limitations. The first and most important one is obviously the refusal for the international team, me and Maria, to come to Mauritania. So we couldn't do the field research ourselves, although we trained Monsieur Haroun. We were in constant and regular dialogue with him. He would tell us his agenda for the day after. We would debrief after certain interviews, etc., etc. And he's someone that knows the world of human rights and has already done the social part of the small pelagic. So even though it was not ideal, we have done it like this. Another important limitation is that when you interview people in a context where human rights are perceived to be sensitive, this might have limited the conversations, the genuineness of the conversations, the truth of the conversations, people being reluctant to meet our local partner and to speak clearly about what might be the issues. We are expecting that this sensitive context is actually coming down, or things are more calm now. We have had difficulties in engaging with private companies. And this is something we're working now with Carmen and other members of the ESR to try to have access to suppliers, through companies. And then, due to timing, we have not yet done the part of the assessment as regards the industrial vessels, which we intend to do. So this is where we are. We have done the assessment of the supply chain and the risks linked to artisanal fishing. We have done some linked to processing plants, as our local partner has already visited 2 processing plants. But we are planning, and we have requested again visas to come in December. As Carmen is coming, we would hopefully try to travel the same week as she is traveling. So in December, our purpose, December, if we get the visas, or then we will try again to do it in January. Our purpose is to visit more processing plants and to focus a little bit more also on industrial fishing. So this is where we are. And in parallel, we are designing and putting together a self-assessment questionnaire with a few easy, direct questions that we will address you, so that you can perform a self-assessment on your purchase practices. To put it in a simple way, I will maybe ask you about your prices, or about the deadlines that you impose to your suppliers, or whether your relationships with your suppliers are, short-term relationships that you need to be negotiating every 3 months or in a quarterly basis, or rather you have stable, long-term relationships with the same suppliers, because all of this can have an impact on the working conditions of the persons at the end of the supply chains. If you have, put in a very simple way, stable relationships, normally that would give your supplier better chances to organize a schedule, to pay better salaries, to hire people in a more formal way, etc., because there is a stable flux of orders, right? So if we get to come to Mauritania, if we get our visas in December, we would have a report with recommendations that we will be finalizing hopefully by the end of December or the end of January, if we had to travel in January. And the idea, after we have the report and the recommendations, is to try to explode this report, to do the best use of it, and to identify which other initiatives are actually taking place in Mauritania, the UNDP, the small pelagics FIP, and see how we can get some synergies and work together and combine efforts, which is always a guarantee of better results, because there are many things going on, and we believe that we can explore collaborations with other actors. So what preliminary findings have we found? First, there is a high level of opacity regarding joint ventures, and this is only concerning, of course, the industrial vessels. So there, although the Mauritania has been reporting in the what's the name of the FITI, Carmen, the Transparency Initiative?
Fisheries Transparency Initiative.
Well, although Mauritania has been reporting, I have been looking into the latest reports, and there is no information at all on, or very limited information on joint ventures and mixed capital companies in the industrial vessels. No, so there is a high level of opacity, and this is something also that a few actors have put forward as well. No, the lack of transparency in the processes for giving licenses to mixed companies and joint ventures. Then there is a horrible lack of reporting and public information concerning human rights in the octopus sectors. There is some reporting. There has been more reporting on small pelagics, but we cannot make assumptions that what happens in the small pelagic sector is actually applicable or is also happening in the octopus sector. First thing that is different is the impact that the small pelagic sector has on the right to food of coastal communities is not so much of a problem when we're speaking about the octopus fishing, because Mauritanians don't eat octopus, so there is not the same impact on the right to food and the livelihoods of the coastal community. So we cannot really make assumptions on what happens in the artisanal fishing in one sector might be applicable to the other, or in the industrial fishing, industrial boats in small pelagics will also be a problem in octopus fishing, industrial fishing. So we are not in a position to make assumptions in this regard as well. And we have preliminarily identified, both through the desk research and the field work, a few human rights problems. First, the risk of forced labor and modern slavery. I don't know if you know, but Mauritania has been the last country in the world to abolish and criminalize modern slavery, and this was just 2 decades ago. So this is a problem that is embedded. It's a systemic problem in Mauritanian society. There are persons that are still born into slavery. So this is something that is translated into all social relationships, including employment relationships. So given the context, there is a high risk of forced labor. Forced labor can also arise in Mauritania through debt bondage cycles, because the owners of the small pirogues normally do not have access to bank credits, so they go into debts, creating, the risk of existence of debt bondage systems. The risk of child labor is also present, most notably in the artisanal fisheries, because kids work along with their families, and in the Muslim culture in Mauritania, the difference between adulthood and childhood is not determined by the age of 18 as it is in international standards, but it is more likely related to the development of the individual. So if an individual is considered to be an adult because he's very tall and very robust, he might be considered fit for working in artisanal fisheries, which is a very dangerous sector. There are problems with health and safety, because most notably in artisanal fisheries, the health and safety is very limited. You will find life jackets, but very little water. They even cook in the pirogues, so there is a risk of fire, etc., etc. The health and safety is very limited. A wide and very extended informality in the sector, and low wages, and people that are just happy, to have their wages and unaware of the rights, so they wouldn't even protest. So to put the example of child labor, so that you can understand how we will be implementing this in practice, we have identified that there is a risk, child labor. So we now have to put forward a set of recommendations to tackle the risk of child labor. So if I am addressing our recommendation regarding the risk of child labor to the state of Mauritania, I would be saying to the state of Mauritania, that they need to, for instance, increase the inspections before giving an authorization to the sea, putting clear rules on what is child labor, maybe implementing training programs on child labor, because there is also always a confusion between what is authorized and what is banned on child engaging in employment. Not every work is banned under 18. There are different situations. For the companies, I will also ask you, for instance, to ask your suppliers to put in place, if we're speaking about industrial vessels, age controls. If we're speaking about artisanal vessels, again, to tell the suppliers that there is a zero tolerance to child labor, etc., etc. So different recommendations to different actors to tackle the issues that we have found. And here you find some of the main issues that we have found to be salient: forced labor, child labor, etc., etc. So next steps. We will hopefully finalize our risk assessment in December. As I said, we want to complete the assessment of the industrial vessels and deepen a little bit our research into more processing plants. We will be sending you the self-assessment questionnaire before January, and you will have until the end of January, for instance. We're not in a hurry for that to answer. It would be a short questionnaire with a very forward, client-friendly questions. And then we will be drafting the report and recommendations and looking out to synergies with other initiatives, respectively in January and the first quarter of 2026. Questions?
It's a lot of bad news.
Bad, why?
Well, not bad. Just not a great starting point. That's all. Not a great starting point.
No, I think we just didn't have the information. I mean, fishing is a and Africa, you have a combination of a very complex sector, I would say, very informal one. And the minute you are in an informal sector and artisanal sector, we all know that there are going to be issues. But I think you're I've seen much worse. I have really seen much worse. This is not the worst that we've seen. I think Mauritania octopus is like the jewel of the crown. So I trust that authorities will be willing to. We're just at the beginning. I think this is the first time they actually have this conversation. They actually care about this. This is like textile sector 20 years back, when everyone was just saying, like, how are we going to eliminate children in the factories in China? Well, there is no more children now. There is no, but we have made a lot of progress, and I really have seen much worse. I think we are in a good starting point. You are all clear on where you want to go. You have agreed in certain goals, and with the help of Carmen and the ESR, and I think the authorities will be willing to help. It's not rocket science, and it has happened before. We just need to begin putting the first steps. It's just that it's a bit overwhelming because it's the first time that these issues are approached in Mauritania, and it's a complex country where really, I mean, it's saying that this is the last country that criminalized modern slavery in 1996. I think that's not nothing.
Yeah, I knew that. That was a presentation about it. I do.
So we have a tough context, but don't be overwhelmed about it.
All right. I'm glad you guys are working on this and not me. So I have a couple questions, specifically related to the risk of child labor issue. And Nautabu in particular, I believe octopus accounts for like 70% of the jobs in one way or another, and whether it's fishing, processing, freezing, or something like that. We've seen this with other species. We obviously don't want children on vessels, in factories, anywhere, other than whatever would be a good alternative, whether it's school or something safer. But given the fact that
they could do some work. Work is allowed over 15 years old, and as long as it's not dangerous. And I struggle to understand whether fishing is ever not dangerous, because also we have to take into account the extreme heat that they're suffering, et cetera, the increased presence of industrial vessels that makes it more dangerous for the artisanal pirogues, et cetera. Yeah.
So yeah, that's, I guess the question is like, what alternatives would there be for that work? Because again, they rely on this for their family's livelihood. And then alternatively, I mean, I know the Mauritanian government has made some strides in transparency over the last 30 years. But octopus still, I believe, accounts for like 8 to 10% of their global, of their total export value. So yeah, they're going to, I know they want to compete better with Morocco. But the fact that they have been so resistant to work with the auditor, like what, is there a plan, or do we just have to wait to get them more engaged? Because they're not going to want to sacrifice the productivity. It's a huge part of their GDP. And on the other side, the US is not the primary market for this product. I mean, you got to deal with Japan, China, Spain, I believe is, they'll put in the right
Spain.
Procedure. Spain is the biggest value, but there's significant market in Japan and China for this fish as well. So I guess I don't know if I have a great question, but I'm just, I feel like it's going to be a battle.
It's always a battle, Joe. It's always a battle because.
No, I was going to say that we are involving Japanese companies and Japanese pre-competitive coalitions that are interested in knowing about this, and well, we are in this process. I believe that, and Pia can correct me if I'm wrong, that is also about breaking a bit the status quo. Sometimes it's like this kind of reflection that I heard over years is that in Mauritania everything is impossible. I heard that from your suppliers. I heard that from the fishing industry. I heard that from the processors. No, Mauritania is a mess. Mauritania will never change. Mauritania is an absolutely chaos. Africa, this is Africa. So it's like we take for granted that because it's Africa and a developing country, nothing can be done and children will be working. So if this is what Pia, who is the expert, say, we need to start somewhere, and obviously we are just mapping and doing this assessment to generate this evidence, because today, as she said, there is nothing that points to improvement. So if we believe that this is a mess and we don't assess the situation, we are not going to have tools to improve the situation, and we stay with the same status quo of the colonies over the last 100 years.
Yeah, and what's interesting here, Joe, is that all the work that we're doing will be designed with local partners. So we have a local partner that is working closely with us, because there is this, and I hear you, no? The double debate where you say, okay, so you remove children, and what is the alternative for those children and those households that actually depend to a certain point from the income that is linked to children's work? Where this is where you get in the authorities to provide for schools more and or training, or the minute the sector it's more formalized and the parents are earning decent salaries, you don't need anymore the children to be engaged. So it's a whole bunch of recommendations that actually step by step somehow complement one with each other, which is so the same thing in agriculture in Egypt. I found a lot of a few months back of child labor, and precisely women. I mean, small girls, 15, 14, 16-year-old girls. And I know that it's a Muslim country, so they were not naturally go to study in the rural areas, so there are no schools, and this is where we're trying to keep up with local NGOs, authorities, etc., to design what is feasible in that context. And this is what we will be aiming to do. What is feasible? First, tackling and training. This is, I mean, people need to begin to understand that it's not a good idea for a 14 or a 15-year-old, although he's a robust man, to be fishing under 45 degrees for 8 hours. So training, maybe providing, working together with the suppliers so the salaries are decent salaries so that we don't need to engage the children to get a better salary, formalizing the sector, doing checkups of the control. And if I don't think this is going to lead to a productivity issue, maybe it leads to more migration and we hired in decent conditions migrants. But yeah, I know it's hard to say, like, we're Western nice ideas that say no children working, but I want to believe that I'd rather have a 15-year-old studying or, you know, not being exposed to what is a dangerous work. So slowly, and this is why we design all the measures with the local authorities, and this is why we go again to the field to visit them and to meet people to understand what can work.
Great. All right. My last question. I know you haven't started the industrial fishing vessel portion of it yet, but do you have an idea of who owns those vessels? Are those Mauritanian-owned vessels? Are they foreign-owned vessels? I believe China sent a bunch of vessels offshore.
Yeah.
So there are, in the industrial fleet, there are basically two models. So foreign vessels are not allowed to fish octopus, to target octopus. Okay, so the vessels that are sourcing octopus vessels, trawlers, are all Mauritanian flag. The majority of them are under two regimes, joint ventures, Chinese traditional joint ventures, so capital Chinese. The crews are Mauritanian, the majority of cases. This is some of the findings that we are looking for, that Pia will look for. So I can guarantee you that many of these vessels are sourcing you. This regime is within the law. Okay, so these are the first joint ventures that arrive into Mauritania. So quite well consolidated into the law, and despite the capital, the Chinese capital, they have to respond to the Mauritanian law, management rules, and they respond to the Mauritanian law and enforcement, control and enforcement. Within this regime, there are also the Spanish joint ventures. Okay, so Spanish, so fleets that are managed by Spanish owners, but with Mauritanian flag and Mauritanian partners. So here is where I'm also trying to reach out to the Consemar Association, because some of these companies are part of the Consemar Association, and I've in the past tried to engage them both in the SAR and in the FIP. I don't know the reasons to not joining. I can think that, okay, they have the demand, so they don't need to join any project and they just want to keep quiet. I also believe, because this is in conversations I had with some companies, another option is that they don't want to expose themselves because they depend on a Mauritanian partner. So they don't want to expose themselves as Spanish businesses to say, okay, I have my partner that has opened me the opportunity to invest here, and if I make a lot of noise. But I know that some of these vessels may have crews, mixed crews of Spanish and Spanish, usually the officials, captains, masters, and crews of Mauritania and Senegal. We need to validate all of this. So I'm working to try to engage further these companies, that many of them are based in Vigo. But until now, so these companies and these fleets, your vendors, your suppliers in Spain know very well who they are. So this is something that you can also listen. You talk to if you are sourcing from trawlers, from fishing trawlers, Mauritanian fishing trawlers, these are the two groups of vessels. There must be also some Mauritanian vessels. This is more or less the three of them. Then there is a private agreement with China, with two companies in China that has like a contract that is out of the regulation, out of the law. And these companies are Hongdong and Sunrise. Okay, so these are two massive companies that operates in a different port, out of the Mauritanian law. They have a quota, but nobody is controlling this quota. So they are out of the scope of the FIP from the very beginning, because they are out of the scope of the law and out of the scope of the SMCP. This is a problem for Mauritanian companies. I have to say that nobody is very happy with these private agreements. But now this has been a Mauritanian politics of partnering with the same for fish meal and fish oil. So now they are also, I'm aware that they are looking into how to solve the problem of private agreements, because at the end of the day, China is building the highways, is buying the country, and it's not easy to exit from this kind of agreements. So if you are sourcing from Sunrise or Don Juan, or your suppliers are sourcing from these fleets, you must know that they are out of the FIP and out of our scope. We are not able to reach out to them. And then we have all the pirogues and the small scale vessels, and Glacier. The Glacier are also intermediate vessels, coastal vessels, that are partnering with factories and traders and ship owners. So the number of different business wholesalers, traders, exporters, and processors is quite complicated to understand in Mauritania, because all of them overlap somehow. All of them are traders, or all of them consider themselves producers, even if they are really processors. Because of what? Because of what Pia was saying, is that they work in many times, so I cannot say that all of them work that way, but in a depth logic. That means that, okay, I have like 3-4 pirogues that I'm financing prior to the fishing season, and then these pirogues are in debt with me. But if the price is not good at the SMCP, or they don't sell the product, they don't get paid. So they are always working on debt. So is this the bondage? Is this there is a risk? I'm not saying that this is illegal, that I'm not the expert, so I'm not here to define what is this, but this is the reality on how the sector works. I don't know if it's fair and unfair, or if this is something that will be determined with the final assessment. It's not me to classify what case of debt it is, but this is the way they work. And then you have also Japanese joint ventures. I'm unsure if Japanese have joint ventures with fleets, but of course there are joint ventures, Japanese with processors and factories, and Spanish companies as well, joint ventures of processors with Spanish capital, with a Mauritanian partner. There are a lot of them, from Canary Islands, from Spain, and there are others that just have long-term contracts and agreements operating in the country. And many traders opportunistically working with different wholesalers. So it's a very complex system. So the supply chain is not very complicated if we identify the producers, processors, and end markets, but the complexity stays in the post-harvesting at the landings. So this is what they are working and they are exploring, and where I help when I can with information and connections. But even for me, after 7 years traveling there, I'm struggling to always understand all the systems, how they sell, how they put the price, and everything.
Yeah. Can you, I don't know if it's possible, but those 2 companies that are outside the scope of the SR, is it possible to, like, I know there's only a few companies on this call. Is it possible to get the word out within the group just to make sure that nobody is, or at least that they're aware that those 2 companies, even if they're, country product of Mauritania, that they're not in the scope? Because I trust my processors,
I informed very often about this situation from the very beginning of the FIP, and it would be very clear.
I wasn't sure if the 2 names of the companies.
Yeah, I can put in the notes.
Right, great. I have no more questions, sorry.
Thank you. Oh no, but this is what we want.
Thank you.
Because your
question, it's good. It makes us think.
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely, I mean,
It's
it's the
good.
most, yeah, it's up there with the most, yeah, it's one of the most fragmented fisheries we deal with. So, and the system you were talking about, Carmen, with the, you know, there's a lot of debt involved, is not unfamiliar with other fisheries like in Central and South America, but those
Yeah.
governments tend to be a little more involved in terms of workers' rights, a little bit. So.
Okay, so I will thank you, Pia, for the document. I believe that the majority of you may have Pia's contact. So next steps are this survey to all of you. So please, it's going to be an easy, as Pia has said, and I will
straightforward.
And I will reach out individually when I need more information or when there is something or a specific message that you can help us translate it into your suppliers or others, and I will keep you updated on this. So I will go a bit fast now. We are almost at the end of this presentation, but I need to pick up my son at the school. So basically what I'm proposing for 2026 or 2026, this is just a proposal, is maybe redefining the scope of the Octopus SR. Today it's called Global Octopus SR, but over the years we have tried to get more interest in other fisheries, and all the focus is on West Africa. We don't have other participants interested in other regions, and I truly believe that we need to focus on these key geographies that are Senegal, Morocco, and Mauritania. This is quite well aligned as well with the future UNDP project that is going to be launched finally in January, after 2 years of delay, where we are going to focus in responsible demand. So we expect that companies more and more work in these responsible policies and procurement policies. And support sustainable offer. That means supporting the governance in Mauritania and Senegal, because Morocco is out of the scope of this project that was unilaterally stated by Morocco. They didn't want to be part of the project with the octopus. We will remain the same with the participation criteria. We expect, as I mentioned, more pressure on your suppliers, more traceability, more transparency. But basically, we will currently keep with the work plans and the participation as we were. And considering some delays and lags in terms of information, features profiles, and others, we may freeze the contributions, at least for the first half of the year, because we are also in discussions with Finance Earth, which is a group that is working to find solutions for FIPS with funding and additional ideas. So what I'm discussing to them, because they are really focusing on some tech solutions or some actions or activities that are very, very tangible or translated into efficiency in gears. But I will give an example. The pots, so the fishing gear used in Mauritania is plastic pots, and many companies are looking into how to replace the plastic pots by biodegradable. I don't know how do you say that, but biopods. So when they are lost in the ocean, they can be degraded in a bio solution way. What happens is that, okay, we can invest in that, but if we don't know the amount of pots, if we don't know the amount of pirogues, how does it really be successful? So what I'm talking to them is that they must find solutions to finance governance solutions, not to finance only tech or gear efficiency projects. That what we are expecting is that they are able to find incentives, for example, for all this industry that is not engaging properly in Mauritania. So this is what we are working with. I have also proposed internally into SFP to stop the contributions, to use the funding we have until June 2026. So depending on the launch of the UNDP project, we may be able to reduce the contributions or not, because as you know, SFP belongs to philanthropic funding. So this is my expectation. In case that we cannot freeze the contributions for next year, we will maintain the contribution or try to reduce a bit. I need to explore in the coming months what are the solutions. And finally, financial accountability. So basically nothing changed from what I presented in July. So this is exactly the same slide. What it changed is that I didn't use the amount for the field trip in July because I was finally invited to a conference. So I used the money for this trip to do the work on Octopus. So I could use the same money. So I will use this for the field trip in December to be sure that I use the money for meetings by the end of the year. So no more expenses by the end of the year expected, and we keep with this budget for the coming year. This is a reminder that I just include in every single presentation. So that gives for you a summary of the recommendations for responsible policies and FIP sourcing that is much more developed in the documents that I shared in already in May, I believe, and April, that I can share again with you. So if there are comments or questions. Yes.
Hey, Carmen and Joe, thank you for all those comments, by the way. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. You could be rest assured that we don't buy from those people either. And I don't really, we could interview everybody on this call, the rest of the importers. I don't think many of us do here. Our problem is the rest of the world, right? Because they don't care. And that's why we have all these problems that we have there. So I don't know what angle we could take in order to try and target this conversation to a broader audience, because, you know, parts of the world don't really care about what we care about.
Pia, I don't know if you want to say something. We keep paddling with this, and I understand the frustration. I am also very frustrated many times, but a few companies are making some changes. So if not, we wouldn't be here now. So you have all commissioned a human rights impact assessment, and this is going to benefit and evidence the full industry. So just think at the impact you may have in the long term. Obviously, this is, as I said, many of the work is not being translated immediately into results in the FIP, and it can be frustrating. But I think that things are changing in Mauritania.
And what, if I may, what you have now is a very strong point of departure, because you all agree in something and you're all putting a lot of financial resources and efforts to do this part. And after the human rights impact assessment is done and we can present it and we can use it, you can come with a paper and say, hey, listen, we have done a risk analysis. This is what there is. So how can we work together? And when I say work together, it is getting in regular dialogue with the suppliers, saying, listen, is there a risk of child labor? How are you tackling this? How can we manage this together? It's not, just acting as a bad cop and putting terrible clauses in the contracts where you just pull out the minute you find something. No, this is about, I have this is not me. It is an independent consultant that has done this job. It's not just me being picky or imposing my Western ideas or whatever, because it's always the same thing. We have this, how can we work together in this? I'm not expecting that here 3 months you have formalized contracts and social security for all the workers, but what do you think is feasible? How can we begin? And you and the other buyer and the other buyer and the whole industry is working together. And this has, it seems impossible, but an enormous impact. When we began this work a few years back, I always put the same example because the textile sector has done an amazing work in a pre-competitive way, because they all use the same suppliers at the end, or the same countries with terrible human rights records, extended child labor, extended forced labor, in both in raw material extraction, so cotton, and in manufacturing factories. And the whole sector came together and said, let's push for this. And the change in some years, we will not see probably changes in 1 month in the next year, but you have the tool to say, this is what's happening. This is not me just inventing something. An expert has done this. How can we work together? And to begin to launch the conversation. I've seen this also in agriculture in Spain, where if you used agriculture, I mean, Spain is in the most unequal border in the world. So we have all this irregular immigration from African states who are employed largely in agriculture in Spain. And everyone is happy with this system because it's the only way for them to work. And it's very cheap work from the other side. And if you use the words trafficking or modern slavery 5 years back, you can get killed at night. And now we have been shifting and working together and same thing, doing human rights impact assessments and saying, this is out there, how can we work on it? And things have changed. And now you see the trade unions and the suppliers and the growers talking about modern slavery and taking measures to prevent it, et cetera, et cetera. So I know it can seem overwhelming, but I think we're taking the right steps. So happy to see that you are, and this is not always the case, you are all aligned, you are all going in the same direction, and you're putting a lot of effort on this. So I am quite positive on really, and from what I've seen and conversation I have my conversations that I have held with the local partners and so on. I don't think that Mauritania is a country that would, I mean, it is too precious of a goal, the octopus sector, for them to, to blocking things that are going to stop trade if they don't take it seriously. It's a no-go back for them.
Great.
Okay. So thank you all. I'm sorry, I need to finish the call. I need to run. But you can always reach out to me individually
And to me as well, if you need any questions, I mean, whatever.
I will share Pia's email in the notes. You may have already. So you can also reach out directly. There are, as I mentioned, non-disclosure agreements. What you are going to speak with Pia, I will not. So we are totally independent. So the results that Pia has presented is the first time I'm seeing at this. We are keeping very independent. I provide support with information, but I keep totally out of the assessment to not be mix of conflict of interest or others. So any conversation that you want to have separately with Pia I'm not going to be informed. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your, I noticed that you paid attention. So thank you for your attention.